Good morning. Please invite the deputations to come in first. Yes, deputations, please. Well, the main item on today's agenda is a public hearing. Another item is a cyberport report. So we have to grasp our time well because we have 18 deputations and individuals today. Each deputation will speak for 3 minutes. For our members, also 3 minutes each, including questions and answers. And there should only be one round of questions. Please raise your hand if you want to speak. Now let's start. Item 1 on the agenda can be omitted. We don't have any papers since the last meeting. Date of next meeting and items for discussion. April meeting will be held on Monday at 2:30 p.m. Hong Kong Design Center, work progress, and introduction on the first film. And then Ms. Claudia MO sent a letter to the panel on the 15th of March to suggest that we discuss the future development of public broadcasting and to receive views from the deputations. Well, this is not to be an additional item at our regular meeting, so we'll hold a special meeting to have a public hearing. After discussing with the clerk, we only have a time slot on the 26th of April because we have busy schedules, and then we'll proceed to holiday, and we have another regular meeting. So 26th of April, 10:45 a.m. Special meeting. Yes, Mr. Chairman, I agree to a special meeting. When will be our regular meeting? It's today. Oh, yes, so we've advanced our April meeting to today. Yes, no problem for the 26th of April, but on the 24th of April, the LegCo will discuss amendments to the budget. If we have tens of thousands of questions, we may not be able to have the special meeting. So will that be cancelled? I mean, the special meeting, if that happens? Oh, yes, of course. Thank you very much, Ms. Emily Lau, for raising that. But we'll have invited the deputations already. So by what time will we inform the deputations that they should not come because the special meeting is cancelled? Yes, but we'll have to wait and see. Ms. Claudia MO, if the 26th of April clashes with the LegCo meeting and has to be cancelled, I'd like to fix another date first. Well, we don't know how filibustering will proceed. I have to declare interest. We haven't yet submitted the amendments. Well, Longhair has already submitted over 200 amendments. Well, if just the three of us are to speak, then we should be able to finish on schedule. Otherwise, we'll have to extend our council meeting to the 26th of April. So I'll discuss with the clerk. We'll definitely have a special meeting. We'll fix a date. Mr. SIN Chung-kai, Mr. Chairman, I agree with you. We must have a special meeting. I think it's better not to choose 26th of April. It's highly unlikely that we can finish by then. Well, just don't think of the filibustering. If we proceed normally, we can't finish on the 26th of April. Well, the budget debate may last 2 to 3 days. I think we should fix another date later. And then on the 25th of March, Ms. Emily LAU, Mr. SIN Chung-kai, Ms. Cyd HO, Ms. Claudia MO, and Mr. Charles Mok jointly signed a letter to the panel saying that the Communications Authority is studying the quality of programs and types of programs, carrying out a public consultation. And the authority should, as soon as possible, explain all the details to the LegCo. That is, not just the public consultation, they should come to the panel. Well, it's difficult to make an arrangement now. We cannot add an additional item after the public hearing because we have a very tight schedule at the May regular meeting as well. That is, it's difficult to add an additional item after the public hearing at the special meeting. Well, then there's no way out, but maybe, Mr. Chairman, we need a longer meeting. All right. The deputations have all arrived. Well, if with the consultation period closes on the 2nd of April, what should we do? Well, can the administration extend the consultation period by a month or two? Well, the permanent secretary is here. What about consultation on the extension of license for ATV and TVB? The consultation will end on the 2nd of April. I think you should come and discuss with us. Well, that's the consultation conducted by the CA. I cannot say anything on their behalf. For those who come in late, submissions, if the CA is willing, those late submissions can also be included. Well, Mr. Chairman, the issue is not that we would like to give our views. We just want the administration to come and explain what they're doing. Well, what they are doing is explained in the papers. If you think that's enough, you can ask them to come and explain again. Well, we've put up a request with the administration. They've responded to that request. Mr. Ha, are you here? Can you answer that question? Well, we've listened to this request from members. I'll go back to discuss with the members of the CA. All right, so much for the time being. We have time constraint today. There are so many deputations and individuals here who would like to air their views. So we now have to discuss the arrangements for the frequency spectrum in the 1.9 to 2.2 gigahertz band upon expiry of the existing frequency assignments for 3G mobile services. Now, this has been discussed at many panel meetings. Some members, at the request of the operators, asked for a public hearing. So, at this meeting, we'll spend quite some time for those who are concerned about the issue and the operators to speak. The purpose of today's meeting is that members and the panel listen to views about the arrangements for the frequency spectrum upon expiry of the existing frequency assignments. Well, those who need the service can wear their earpiece, channel 1, channel 0 floor, channel 1 channel Cantonese, channel 2 English, and we have simultaneous interpretation service. Apart from LegCo members and designated officials, those deputations and individuals attending today, their written and verbal submissions will not be protected by the LegCo Powers and Privileges Ordinance. So when you speak, even when you're representing your organization or yourself, you have to take note of that. According to 83A and 84 of the Rules of Procedure, on the issues of discussion today, if members of any direct or indirect pecuniary interest, they should disclose the nature of the interest before they speak. So you have to declare. So now I'd like to invite the deputations and individuals to speak 3 minutes each for the deputations. First of all, Miss Tam, sorry. I support option 1. That is to give the existing operators the right of first refusal. PCCW is investing very differently when compared with the past. The franchise was broken. We do not blame the administration because it's for healthy competition that competition is introduced. But mobile phones are under very fierce competition in Hong Kong throughout the world. and the 3 existing operators have a balanced situation and we have stable 3G services. When the market is under a healthy and orderly competition and a balance point is reached, I do not see the need and merit for enhancing competition. The administration should give a third of the 3G spectrum. To us, that is the administration's request and proposal we do not understand. We should not blindly introduce more competition, and we feel rather surprised and strange. At the beginning, the situation was not ideal. The operators' investment did not go anywhere. And then PCCW invested in the market, and in recent years, mobile phones became so popular that PCCW started to pick up. After all these ups and downs and hiccups, we managed to stand firm now. If the government insists on putting these spectrum for auction, our investment will go down a bottomless pit, and PCCW investors will suffer, and the government is the culprit. We also pay tax. We're just like a newborn baby. We're not equipped to go into the mainland market, but our biological mother does not take care of us. Rather, China Mobile, the son of another person, is to be introduced to the market. So we are very saddened by this fact that our biological mother allows competition between us and other people. Next. Well, I hold PCCW shares, quite many of them, and I hold Hutchison, China Mobile, and other core options and related interests. As an investor in telecommunications and a user of the service, recently I received a short message saying something like $19.5, blah, blah, blah. I was perplexed. No matter which option the administration chooses in the end, I don't want to see telephone fees rise, adding to the burden of the public. The PCCW welcomes the second stage consultation. When arranging the spectrum, consumers' interest should be taken into account, and public resources should be well used. That is, we opt for option 3, the hybrid option. That is, the existing operators should have the right of first refusal to retain 2/3 of the spectrum. And the remaining 1/3 could be returned to the authority for re-auction. And the government should encourage interested parties to bid, and the upset price should be set at a fair level. The DAB is of the view that this hybrid option will guard against monopoly and encourage healthy competition. The government should encourage incumbent operators to engage in healthy competition and guard against abuse of powers in the market. And we should suitably monitor the performance of the operators such that they can enhance their service standard and members of the public can use reasonable price to enjoy their services. As for our detailed comments, we have submitted them to the administration. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chen Chung from DAB. Next, Ms. Yao Sok-ming. I don't hold the relevant shares, but I have a number of phones. For smartphones, the usage rate tops the world. Foreign domestic helpers and ethnic minorities consider mobile phones an essential part of their daily life. So, fees and charges are closely related to people's livelihood. We would like free extension of existing licenses. Any extra proceeds should be plowed back to the public.
I think the people are most concerned about the quality of the service provided. Now, Hong Kong's telecommunications service is already better than the mainland or other countries. However, during busy hours and MTR stations, we don't think the service is that good. Now the government is offering 3 options. We think that we should allow the existing or incumbent operators to renew their license. That is the best way to go. As for the 2 other options, they will bring about a lot of uncertainties, and the service level will be affected to different extents. According to international practice, the 4 major operators are now providing a very good service. I think they absolutely should have their licenses renewed, and only by doing so they can put their effort in providing better service, and then the telephone calls or telephone fees will be lowered. Otherwise, everybody will be losing. The public hopes that telephone fees can be lowered. The operators have been reiterating that if the costs go up in the future, the cost will be shifted onto consumers. We totally understand this. It's like the property developers, and if the bidding price is high, they will shift the cost onto the public. And if the government is charging the operators for more license fees, the fees will be passed on to consumers. So the license fee is closely related to telephone fees. So we think that the existing operators should be allowed to renew their licenses, and they can save costs by doing so, and such saved costs should be rebated to consumers. Of course, the government should regulate them accordingly so as to ensure that after the renewal of their licenses, the operators will use the spectrum efficiently. And also, the public is very concerned about market competition and consumer rights. Now, there are 4 operators of 3G spectrums, and they are of more or less the same capacity, so they can check and balance each other. Under such circumstances, consumers' rights are adequately protected. And lately, the 4G spectrums have been successfully auctioned, and we didn't see the 4 major operators joining hands to do anything against it. So we don't think that unnecessary competition should be introduced into the market. Thank you. Next, Mr. Wong Kam-tai. Sorry, Chairman. I would like to clarify a point. Now, just now, the Chairman talked about the declaration of interest. Well, yes, the speakers would voluntarily declare their interest. However, I think the rule does not apply to non-members of this panel. I would like to clarify this point. Well, they're just saying that they hold certain shares of certain companies. Now, I would like to say this again about the declaration of interest. It is for electoral members only, so the deputations do not have to declare their interest. But if you think that it will be more convincing to include that in your speech, we do not have any view against that. Next, Mr. Wong Kam-tai. My name is Wong Kam-tai KP Wong. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Huawei Technical Investment Company Limited. And actually, I work for the Hong Kong representative office. I do not work for the main head office. Huawei is honored to be invited to attend this panel meeting. As some of the honorable legislators may not be familiar with Huawei, allow me to make a brief introduction of this company. Founded in 1989, Huawei is a leading global information and communication technology ICT solutions provider with a vision to enrich life through communication. In 2012, Huawei's unaudited sales revenue is around $35.4 billion. Mr. Wong, I hope that you can make the best use of this 3 minutes. That is about the topic we are discussing today. We can find your company's information online. Well, I didn't know that there's a time restriction. So let me talk about our views. But I would like to reiterate the point. Our views are derived from our consideration on the long-term developments of the telecom industry in Hong Kong rather than the short-term interest of one company's sales and orders. In other words, the views to be expressed here have nothing to do with Huawei's short-term business interests. Huawei believes that from the technical point of view, option 1, rights of first refusal to be offered to the incumbent 3G operators, should be the best choice for the telecom industry in Hong Kong. Our reasons are as follows. First, best utilization of existing network and system equipment. Option 1 allows the incumbent operators to make the best use of their existing network and system equipment and avoid the waste of equipment and facilities due to later frequency reallocation. Please note that building a citywide 3G network that is over 2,000 cell sites per operator will consume a lot of professional planning and physical work. And options 3 and 4 imply a possibility that part of a well-functioning network will be terminated, which means wasting all the work put in building and optimizing this network. In order to compensate for this kind of change, the whole network will have to be replanned and restructured, and it will take about 1 to 2 years to do this. Second, customer service continuity. Option 1 allows the incumbent operators to maintain and improve the service to end users. Whereas if option 2 or 3 were adopted, the incumbent operators will require to replan and restructure the existing network. Everyone knows that the existing traffic loading on the 3G networks are very high. Even with the best effort to minimize service impact to end users, no one can guarantee that services to the end users will not be disrupted when cutting network capacity under high loading conditions. Mr. Wang, your time is up. Now we really have to pay attention to the time. Next, Mr. Kenneth Pearson.
By the 3G licensees to examine Ofca's options for the two presented in the two consultations. We've taken an independent view in our study based on our experience with 3G licensing in other developed countries. In the short time available, I'd like to focus on just 3 points made in our study conclusions. Firstly, option 3, as currently favoured by Ofca, would be a bad decision for Hong Kong. We foresee significant costs for consumers, either through degradation in service quality, and even Ofca estimates a capacity reduction of 18% with option 3, and switching costs for consumers forced to buy 4G smartphones. There will also be higher network costs as the 3G operators struggle to meet a 6-fold increase in 3G traffic using 1/3 less spectrum, costs that will be borne by consumers in the long run. Whichever way the impact of spectrum deprival plays out, the 3G consumers will bear the cost of the decision. With option 1, we don't have these risks. My second point is that there can be no realistic expectation of competition benefits that would outweigh these costs. Hong Kong is one of the most, if not the most, competitive mobile market in the world. There is no market failure to fix, so there cannot be a credible expectation of additional benefit through enhanced competition from transferring spectrum from the current 3G licensees to a different operator. So if option 3 has little or zero benefit, but has significant costs compared to option 1, then option 1 should be adopted. Option 3 will harm consumers and result in a net loss in value for Hong Kong. My third point is regarding the spectrum utilisation fee. Using current 3G fees and recent Hong Kong auction results as a reference, we performed best practice calculations of the implied fees for the right of first refusal spectrum. These calculations resulted in values less than a half of the 77 to 80 million Hong Kong dollars per megahertz calculated by Ofca. But worse than this, there has been no consideration of recent auction prices paid for 3G spectrum internationally. We found that the spectrum utilisation fee proposed by Ofca is around 4 times the average prices paid in other developed countries. A high spectrum fees environment in Hong Kong means that all operators will face higher costs of service provision, and in the long run this will be reflected in the prices that consumers pay. We believe that spectrum fees should be set at a fair and reasonable level, at around 25% of the levels currently proposed by Ofca. So my time is up. Yes. Thank you very much for your
attention.
Thank you. Mr. Kenneth Pearson has provided the hard copy of a PowerPoint presentation, I believe is tabled. And from Hong Kong Telecommunication Limited, there are 2 representatives who will be speaking, please. Dr. Henry Wong or Mr. Sharon. Mr. Sharon, please.
The government's approach of decreasing service quality and increasing costs is unprecedented and against consumer interests.
Please turn on your microphone.
Is that on? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. The only winner in the government's approach is the Treasury, as the proposed price for the spectrum is excessively high. Only a monopoly like the government could demand prices this high. More importantly, the administration has presented a false choice between options 1 and 3. They are focusing the debate on these two options in order to disguise the proposed excessive prices for spectrum. Just as with land sales, the administration should put new spectrum into the market, as they did with the 3G spectrum auction in 2001, and then allow a secondary trading market to develop. Without a proper secondary spectrum market, the government is now attempting to manipulate the market with the wrong regulatory tool, unilaterally imposing excessively high spectrum prices, and ultimately the resulting service quality and financial costs will be borne directly by consumers. Spectrum trading has been discussed since the 1990s, and we have been through extensive consultation exercises on it. And everyone, yes, everyone agrees that we should have it. Spectrum trading is global best practices and is supported by the industry. Spectrum trading was endorsed by the government's consultants in 2006 and was separately endorsed by the government in the same year, and subsequently in more recent decisions through 2009. So we've all been waiting since 2009 for further administration action. So if everybody agrees that spectrum trading works and is efficient and flexible and meets new and evolving demands for spectrum, why hasn't the administration implemented it? And why instead have they come up with a scheme that they admit and want you to support that will substantially harm users? The sensible way forward would be to renew the existing licenses and to adopt spectrum trading. This preserves service quality, which must be the prime objective, allows a market-based regime to be finally introduced, and produces a fair return to the Treasury. Indeed, this approach is fair to the industry, consumers, and the public all alike. OFCA has put forward several myths to support its hybrid option. The most important myth is that a significant decline in service quality is acceptable. The truth is that no economy, and especially a market that is services-based like Hong Kong, can afford a significant decline in telecom service quality. We need to be going forward, not backwards. I can't imagine what LegCo's reaction would be if the carriers came forward and said to you, we'd like to reduce quality by 20 or 30 or 40% and increase price all at the same time. There are additional myths that I'll address perhaps on the Q&A section. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Before the next deputation representative speaks, I would like to respond to Mr. Wong Kam-tai's clarification. Now, in your seating plan, you can see Mr. Wong Kam-tai's name. He's the COO of Huawei Technical Investment Company Limited. Our secretariat has received the reply slip from your company, and it states there that you are the COO, and the name of the company is Huawei Technical Investment Company Limited. So there's nothing wrong with our sitting plan. That's okay. Next, Mr. Kwok Kin. Now, with regard to the reassignment of 3G spectrum, the Civic Party have the following views. Now, we have to enhance competition. And also, according to the government strategy, the allocation of spectrum should boost economic development and also to enhance the efficient use of spectrum. So a competitive market would bring benefits to consumers and will drive down the fees. And also for a competitive market, it should have one condition. That is, for any potential competitors, they should be allowed to enter the market. So for the reassignment of spectrum, we think That is the right way forward, because for those potential investors, they can enter the market. And after the opening of the 3G market, you can see that competition has already brought about a lot of benefits. And also for the assignments of spectrum, the existing operators should not assume that their licenses will be renewed automatically.
Otherwise, it will be going against a major principle of competition. In a commercial operation, the incumbent operators should have calculated their risk of a non-renewal. And incumbent operators can take part in the auction and may even acquire even more spectra. And we have more than 3 years to go. The administration can prepare for the auction such that the operators can know the result as soon as possible. And customers should be encouraged to turn to 4G services or to reduce fees and charges to a level before the expiry. Even though all or part of the spectrum are to be lost, commercial agreements can be reached with the operators to make use of the residual capacity of the 3G service so that they can operate their 3G service even after the expiry. Unless the public is severely affected, spectrum arrangement should be as fair as possible. As for the provisions for consumers, they should be able to protect the interest of the consumers pragmatically. And about 80% of the provisions, 872 complaints were received by the authority, and the Consumer Council received over 1,000 complaints. Smart Tone experienced an incident, and the CA was not informed. Eventually, there was only a fine of $130,000, so the protection is not perfect at the moment. New licenses should be able to protect the consumers. Next, Mr. Richard Voschek.
Jim, this opportunity to summarize our submission. In short, we believe that OFCA's stated position in support of the mixed or spectrum seizure option would do more harm than good. We are surprised that their position significantly differs from past precedent and international policy practices. It is our opinion that their proposal does not adequately consider past precedent involving license renewal decisions, nor the adverse consequences and disruptions to the public should they implement their proposal. It is the Chamber's position that the option which best aligns with our values is granting license renewal through right of first refusal. While re-auctioning 1/3 of existing spectrum may result in new entrant operators, as mentioned by OFCA, it is unlikely to provide any substantial short-term business and consumer benefits in an already highly competitive market. We also believe that OFCA's proposal will have adverse consequences and disruptions to the public by actually reducing investment, innovation, and growth, while at the same time degrading the existing quality of service and increasing costs to consumers. Many governments view spectrum as a public good and are obliged to ensure that operators deliver benefits to the consumer. Once the spectrum is assigned, most governments allow existing operators to renew their licenses as long as utilization and policy standards are met. In 2006, Hong Kong licensed frequencies, commonly known as 2G, were up for renewal. Ultimately, OFCA granted the renewal without spectrum change and listed 5 reasons for doing so. Their operators made efficient use of the spectrum, OFCA's desire to provide a stable investment environment, they wanted to aid in consumer service continuity, they acknowledged satisfactory service was being provided, and continuous investment improvements were being made. These reasons still apply today. So we're baffled that the authority is changing the precedent for a seemingly sole reason of increased competition. Typically, the single reason for governments to seize and reallocate spectrum has to do with the efficient use of it. Under no circumstances has OFCA made a claim against any of the existing license holders that the spectrum was underutilized, underoptimized, or used inefficiently. The fact that there are no claims of spectrum inefficiency gives little reason for government intervention requiring reallocation of the spectrum. To sum up our longer submission in a phrase, a good American phrase is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Thank you, sir.
Next, Mr. Chan Ming-pong. Mr. Chairman, I represent Nokia Siemens. Our company is of the view that before 2020, the industry needs to prepare for a dramatic mobile broadband traffic growth. This calls for government and organizations to allocate spectrum to prepare for this growth. The recent allocation of 850 MHz, 900 MHz, 2.6 GHz, and 2.3 GHz is a good example. We see this traffic growth demand as a key driver to utilize the spectrum use existing 2 times 15 MHz 2.1G spectrum. The hybrid approach of license renewal results to the loss of at least 30% of the network capacity in 2.1 GHz. Hong Kong is well known for being challenging in terms of radio conditions and congestion. Frequency spectrum resource is then the key to guarantee user experience and cope with the massive traffic demand in the long run. If the network capacity is reduced by more than 30% while the technology evolution is seriously obstructed due to the missing spectrum in 2.1 GHz, apparently it is a technology obstacle to retain the user experience and achieve service continuity. Before finalizing the option for spectrum reallocation, this has to be taken into account and thoroughly resolved. Mobile network technology is ever evolving. This evolution is driven by a global standardization body responsible to define the technology standard for the industry. To cite an example, ever since 3G is launched, operators need continuous upgrade on infrastructure to improve the utilization of spectrum and maintain good user example. Data download speed has been improved by 50 times by means of deploying all the frequency resources available and introducing new radio technologies. The advancement of radio technologies would improve the spectrum efficiency in principle, but those techniques would demand terminal support, and the associated benefits are typically radio condition and network loading dependent. Based on today's technology, it is possible to achieve 42 Mbps download speed by using 2 times 10 MHz of existing adjacent carrier. The evolution of 3GPP has already defined the technology to achieve a higher download up speed. For example, download speed of 128 Mbps with contiguous frequency band at 2.1 GHz. According to LegCo paper CB 4364-1213-04, that may lead to a situation that all license owners will own 2 times 10 MHz spectrum. Next, Mr. Andrew Simpson.
First, option 1 is the best of the 3 options the CA has proposed so far. Option 1 is the best of the 3 options currently on the table because it would inflict the least disruption on end users. I submit that the public of Hong Kong should not be asked to sacrifice service continuity or service quality for the slender gains and competitiveness that a mandatory auction might or might not bring. Secondly, option 3 must be rejected in order to avoid serious damage to the high-quality mobile services Hong Kong has so far enjoyed. Option 3 would seriously diminish service quality for businesses and consumers in Hong Kong, as the CA's own reasoning makes clear. The CA states, quote, "It is certain that the decrease in network capacity will have impact on the continuity of calls or data connections," unquote. The CA also anticipates that download speeds would be reduced, quote, "at most 18% on average," unquote, if each operator loses 3G spectrum. Very surprisingly, the CA appears to consider this reduction in call continuity and possibility of slower download speeds as justified. The CA expects that, quote, "under option 3, the incumbents should be able to compete more efficiently," unquote, This is very doubtful, I submit. Hong Kong's mobile services market is already one of the most competitive in the world. And when competition is already so intense, there is only room for a very slight incremental increase in competition in that market. The CA acknowledges also it is, quote, "It is possible that the number of operators in the 3G band may be reduced from 4 to 3, unquote. So end users are unlikely to see much more competition and might in fact see less. I submit that the public interest would be badly served by option 3, which asks the public to pay the price of a definite service degradation in return for the hope of some marginal future increase in competitiveness. Thirdly, I submit Ofcom has taken the wrong path by focusing on spectrum auctions in connection with spectrum that is already utilised. It should instead be developing spectrum trading to fine-tune the allocation of spectrum already in use. If occupied spectrum might be allocated more efficiently, then re-auctioning is the wrong regulatory tool. The right way to achieve more efficient allocation is by establishing a spectrum trading market. This concludes my remarks. I thank the panel.
Okay. 好，下一位係
Next, Ms. Alison Ko. Mr. Chairman, the government proposes that we should hand back our spectrum to the government, and CSO would like to say this: that would weaken investment confidence in the market, and the government has not considered consumer interest. In 2004, when 2G licenses were renewed, the CA decided that our licenses for 2G services should be renewed with no changes. Public factors were considered for renewal of 2G services. What public policy was considered? That is, the operator should effectively use the spectrum to maintain a stable investment environment and not to bring inconvenience to the consumers. In the past, 3G operators worked very hard to launch 3G services, and we continuously upgrade our network and service quality so as to facilitate the business sector and the general public. We're effectively using the spectrum. Innovative services were launched such that Hong Kong is recognized as a global standard. Therefore, the 2004 renewal policy for 2G services should be adhered to for the renewal of 3G licenses. We've been effectively using our spectrum. The CA should not take back a third of our spectrum. Otherwise, there will be great risks and public interest of the consumers will be neglected. Why is it that the renewal policy is different this time for 3G services? Why don't we adhere to the policy for 2G services? Up to this moment, the administration has not come up with an explanation. We should be able to retain our 3G spectrum such that we can provide the best stable service to the public. Before recognizing the long-term development need, the government hastily suggests this option that will not boost confidence for long-term investment to promote world-class service and to provide stable service so as to facilitate Hong Kong as an international financial center is crucial. CSL is of the view that taking back a third of the spectrum will cause the download speed by 18%. Why should consumers accept a lower service standard? And there are other impacts as well. The impact on the public. The government has not carefully considered the impact on consumers before suggesting this option. Retrieving a third of the 3G spectrum is just like taking away one out of the 3 lanes of the Cross Harbour Tunnel. Next, Mr. Sin Lee of China Mobile. Mr. Chairman, China Mobile would like to put forward the following position. Spectrum is public resources, and we should put public interest at the foremost priority when arranging spectrum. Now, the position of the China Mobile that we may not necessarily succeed in the tendering exercise, but including existing 3G operators, we should all be allowed to bid. But the other operators are proposing something like an inheritance type of regime for the spectrum. That is to eliminate the chances of other operators in participating, suffocating the competition environment. And previously, there was this assumption for allocation of spectrum. That is, redistribution is equivalent to killing the spectrum service. In fact, under the new regime, 3G operators should get more spectrum, because at the moment, incumbent operators have different spectrum. In 2010, some operators use very high prices to successfully bid for spectrum so that they can enhance their service. At the moment, some 3G operators have been able to lease their residual spectrum to MNOs. So the existing regime is not that effective. Rather, by auctioning part of the spectrum will allow operators to improve their network and capacity. That's more conducive to public interest. And then there is a second assumption. That is, the proposed new regime will lead to higher fees and charges. But in fact, spectrum fee is only part of the operational cost of the operators. We can analyze previous auction results to see whether or not a high bidding price will lead to higher fees. In March 2011, under the auction, 2 operators only obtained 10 megahertz of spectrum at 2 very high bidding prices. In fact, if the regime is effective enough, fees and charges can be lowered. If costs are passed to the consumers, the market lacks competition. So I think those comments are self-contradictory.
Next, Mr. Chan Kim-pong. I'm an academic, and I always use mobile technology. I'm involved in the organization of seminars and conferences for this issue. So that's why I would like to express my view here. The government is suggesting that 1/3 of the spectrum will be reassigned. And the government says that in 2060, there will be a shortage of 9%. And I do not agree to that. Now, for the existing stakeholders, with the new auction, if they cannot retain their original spectrum, that means they would have to move over to a new spectrum. And in the course of doing this, service would be disrupted. And the continuity of service will also be affected. There may also be problems concerning technical innovations. And if there is indeed a reassignment of spectrum, then when we look at the operators' data capacity, there may be a drop. And if it gets serious, there may be dropped call drops, and the quality of service will be undermined. So to the public, this is really not something good. And also thirdly, I'm also worried about the MTR network. There may also be disruptions. And people using mobile phones in FTL would also be affected. I'm very interested in spectrums. And can the government provide more spectrum so that the operators would have enough spectrum to operate, and they can also make effective investment? Only by doing so can we have healthy competitions, and then operators will not be fighting for spectrums, and then our public can enjoy innovative services and low-cost services. This is what I want to say. Thank you. Thank you. Next, Mr. William Brown.
Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, the government has listed 4 criteria according to which it will make its decision on this matter. I'll list the 4 just briefly. First one is, what is the option which best preserves continuity of service to customers? Secondly, which is the option which best promotes investment and innovation? Thirdly, which will best promote competition? And fourthly, which option will best promote efficient use of the spectrum? I'd like to focus on the first 2. I think we've heard enough this morning about the very speculative alleged benefits in terms of promoting competition and efficiency, given that competition is clearly working in Hong Kong and spectrum is being used efficiently. As far as the continuity of customer service is concerned, as previous speakers have noted, the government itself has accepted that option 1, renewing the licenses, is by far the best option for this purpose. I quote from one of its consultation papers. It says, "A key advantage of this option, which will yield effectively a status quo position, is that it would ensure continuity of services to customers." The government, as we've heard, acknowledges that download speeds under option 3, its preferred option, will decrease by 18%. In fact, we think that figure has been grossly underestimated, and that especially in congested areas like the MTR stations, the figure is much likely to be closer to 40 or 50%. It reaches the 18% figure based on a series of mistaken assumptions. I'll mention 3 of those. First of all, it's based on the assumption that mobile data usage will grow by a factor of 6 over the period 2012 to 2016. In fact, Cisco Systems Limited, an expert company working in this area, has estimated that the growth will be 12 times over this period, i.e. double the government's estimate. Second mistaken assumption is that operators will be able to double their capacity to cope with the increased mobile data usage. Again, this assumption is mistaken. It's simply not possible in many areas of Hong Kong to double capacity in areas such as shopping malls or MTR stations. And the third and perhaps most worrying assumption is that consumers will be prepared to upgrade to the latest smartphones. Well, why should customers who are perfectly happy with their handsets have to upgrade to different and more expensive handsets? Finally, on investment and innovation, clearly, instead of spending money continuing to develop advanced services for consumers, money will be diverted into wasteful expenditure trying to minimize disruption to the existing services. Thank you.
Next, Mr. Patrick Chen. Thank you, Chairman. With regard to the government's latest proposal, that is to retrieve 1/3 of the 3G spectrums from the incumbent 3G operators, we have the following 3 points to make. First, the government is going to retrieve 1/3 of the spectrum, and it thinks that the negative impact bringing to the public will be 18%. We think that is wrong. According to our conservative estimation, this impact will far exceed 18%. We propose that the government should invite international experts to look at these figures. And please allow me to explain further. Now we are already Well, for the 3G service in Hong Kong now, we are already adopting the most advanced technology. As for the station-to-station distance, it's already shortened to 50 to 100 meters. Now, even though we increase the number of base stations, we still cannot reduce the negative impact. So for the negative impact, it would far exceed the 18% estimated by the government, and this is totally unacceptable to the public. We understand that the network is, if the network is congested, there will be a lot of problems. For example, there will be call drops, you cannot go online, and the speed will be slow, etc. And the government says that it will give 3 years to the operator so that they can resolve this network quality problem. This is not a time problem. This is a physical and technical problem. Just now we talk about public interest. For 900 megahertz and 1,800 megahertz, the government renewed the licenses due to public interest. And public interest has not changed, so the government should maintain its original policy. So what is meant by public interest by the government? First of all, there must be service continuity. Second, the licensees should provide a stable investment environment. And third, the licensees have been making investments and has been providing satisfactory service to the public, and this should continue. And all these have not changed, so we don't understand why the government is not looking at public interest this time, and why is the arrangement changed. For advanced countries such as the US, the UK, Australia, and Canada, they are just adjusting the license fees when it comes to renewal of license. And thirdly, well, in the markets there should be auction of new spectrum, but old spectrum should not be retrieved. From 2001 onwards, Hong Kong has been auctioning new spectrums. By doing so, new competitors have been able to enter the market. So we call on the government to sell on more spectrums in order to introduce more competitions. Next, Mr. Kwan Chi-wah. Well, I am a user. In the past, for mobile phones, if there was no call drop, it was already very good. However, today we are enjoying advanced technology. Now we can go online anytime, and we can WhatsApp each other to chat, and we can also upload our photos, etc. So everybody is holding on to their smartphones. And when foreigners come to Hong Kong, they would compare Hong Kong's mobile service with that of their countries. And they discover no matter whether it's indoor or outdoor, the coverage is very good. If you're in the MTR, in basements, in car parks, in elevators, actually in most of the places, you can receive calls. Well, from time to time, if you're in the MTR, the speed may be a bit slower. However, the mobile service in Hong Kong is already very good. A lot of foreigners actually envy us. As for 3G service fees, in Hong Kong, this kind of package is about $200 per month. And in the States, if it's a 5 gigabytes of service, the monthly charge would be 800 Hong Kong dollars. And in Singapore, the same service would cost 600 Hong Kong dollars. So no matter what, Hong Kong's charge is much cheaper than other countries. And if CA is to retrieve part of the spectrum for re-auctioning, yes, the Treasury will be making a lot of money. However, our Treasury is already flooded with money, so I don't think there is such a need. As a user, I am very worried that if some operators are asked to hand out part of their spectrums and they cannot hold on the new spectrums, user service will be disrupted. And if that is the case, users will have to pay higher data fees. And for the operators, because they have to pay a high auction cost, their cost will be shifted onto consumers. Now, everybody thinks that smartphones are very important in their daily lives. It's a daily necessity. We have to rely on our smartphones every day. And for our other daily necessities, are they taxed by the government? So when I look at the reassignment of spectrum, I think eventually consumers will be the victims. Yes, for an auction, the government will make a lot of money, but consumers will be forced to pay much higher fees for their data usage. And it's like a smartphone tax imposed by the government.
The deputations, in particular the operators, have already spoken. I allow the administration to respond first, and the members can ask questions and express comments. They can even ask the operators why fees and charges may increase. So 3 questions for each member, including questions and answers. We have to conclude this item latest by 10:30 a.m. because we have another item on Cyberport report. So this meeting may have to be extended by 15 minutes. So we must end at 10:45 a.m. because we have a council meeting at 11 a.m. So, administration, Permanent Secretary, Mr. Chairman, concerning the spectrum arrangements, in April 2007, we announced the Spectrum Policy Framework. Let me repeat, it's the Spectrum Policy Framework. Cost effectiveness, economic benefits, maximizing the use of spectrum, etc., were the major factors of consideration. Basically, as a market-oriented policy, for example, auction in arranging spectrum. To re-auction spectrum in 2016, the 3G licenses would expire, and we consider the re-auction option, how that option will affect the existing operators. So we propose that a third of the spectrum should be retrieved for re-auction. That is the most cost-effective and economically effective way of spectrum arrangement. Incumbent 3G operators can participate in the 3G auction. Incumbent operators can participate in that auction to strive for and gain even more spectrum than at present. Since 2011, we organized 8 spectrum auctions. SU fee, that is spectrum utilization fee, has been ever growing. That means there is a good demand in the market, and fees and charges are actually determined by market conditions. Cost is just one factor of consideration. And fees and charges for mobile phone services are ever dropping. Therefore, spectrum price may not directly affect service fees and charges. We have to make full use of our spectrum. Now, the consultation period will last 3 months. It will end on the 11th of April. We welcome views from the industry. All views received will be relayed to the Communications Authority for comprehensive consideration. Thank you. I'd like to remind the representatives of the operators and those who have sent in written submissions, you can directly submit your written submissions to the CA because we cannot refer your submissions to them. So before the expiry date of the consultation period, you can pass your submissions to the CA. Well, let me read out the names of those members who would like to speak. Charles Mok, Emily LAU SIN Chung-kai, Elizabeth Quat, Ma Fong Kwok, Paul Zhe, Claudia MO. Any more? All right. I'll draw a line there. Charles Mok, please. 3 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. I have to declare interest. I don't hold their shares, but I use some of their services. but I pay them rather than they pay me. Well, I think technology should be the first and foremost consideration here. However, I discover that many of the deputations who support options 2 and 3 were talking about economy and economic effectiveness. So many people opt for the hybrid option. Well, I was also reading the paper from the DAB, and the CA also mentioned capacity, which will drop by 18%. And some companies, not like Nokia, Siemens, even said that the drop would be 30%. Is it that the administration has chosen not to believe them? Or is the administration thinking that technology should not be considered? The Labour Party also said something about this. The DAB says that it would focus on consumer interest, but it only estimates how much money the spectrum will fetch. Maybe they're investors, so they're interested in proceeds, but they did not consider how price increases will affect the consumers. We must not disregard physics and technology. Well, if you don't understand science, you can consult others. You must not think that it does not exist. Well, I think the professor made a good point there. And today, newspapers are fiercely criticizing this. Some operators have been reaping the most proceeds. Well, the non-incumbent operators would like to have the spectrum re-auctioned, of course. Well, the CA said the capacity would drop by 18%. Nokia, Siemens said 30% in terms of network service. Can we have an elaboration? And there was the speaker who said that it's just like taking away one lane from the 3 lanes in the Cross Harbour Tunnel. Say if today water supply will be suspended by an hour, can you accept that? So we are concerned that in future 3G may drop to 2G or 2.5G, and maybe service will be interrupted or suspended at certain hours of the day. So I'd like to know what 18% really means. Ms. Emily Lau, thank you very much for attending this meeting so early in the morning. Huge interests are involved, so you must come here. I don't have shares, but I own a mobile phone. I've been using it for over 10 years. People find it strange that I've never changed my mobile phone. Well, read the newspapers today. Your consumers scolded you very severely. They're concerned about privacy. So I think you should do something for them. Otherwise, society won't have good impression about you. Mr. Chairman, for Permanent Secretary's reply, it's just like Mr. Charles Mock said, they're not responding. To introduce competition is already good. Well, they say we can have competition, but only competition among the incumbent operators, not for new entrants. They say consumers may suffer congestion, failure to get through with your mobile phones, etc., etc. If all these are to happen, the authority won't be able to bear their responsibility. So I think they should explain clearly to LegCo whether those possibilities they mention will occur. Will competition become unacceptable in future? We like competition, but given the suggested future phenomena, the administration refused to give a reply. So, Permanent Secretary, would you please tell us whether those possibilities may occur? Well, the technical question should be referred to the CA. Well, new spectrum is scarce resources. I mean, spectrum on the whole is scarce. Digital switch-off have to be done for new spectrum. Well, if there's a new spectrum, we can auction it. But what about the old spectrum? Technically, if there are no problems, we can put them all up for auction, but technically we're subject to a constraint. I'd like the CA to say something. Mr. Ha? Well, when we put forward the 3 options, we already considered technical feasibility. In fact, in 2007, when we formulated, no, I want to ask about 18%, 40%, 50%, etc., etc. Can you say something about that? Our paper said something. If a third of the spectrum is lost, the efficiency may drop by 18%. But they mentioned 30%, 40%, or even 50% in the MTR. Well, maybe we had different opinion on our assessment. Of course, we know, but we want to know how you carry out your assessment. According to our assessment, the drop would be 18%. If we do not do anything now, by 2016, efficiency will drop by 9% anyway, because no more new spectrum will be supplied. That is, until 2015, there won't be any new spectrum. According to our data, demand is ever growing. So if you do nothing, the efficiency will drop by 9% anyway. Now they don't have any additional comments, but if they have additional comments, please pass them to us in writing. They must tell LegCo the fact. Mr. SIN Chung-kai, Mr. Chairman, again a technical issue. First, I'd like to ask the CA whether they can have a more authoritative technical report for us. We want to know whether it will be 18% or 50%. Just now, some deputations said that they should commission independent consultants to carry out a study. So will you commission independent technical consultants to do assessment? You said just now that your assessment is 18%. May I refer you to page 5 of the PowerPoint presentation, referred to by the chairman? You see that in future there will be strong demand for spectrum, be it 3G or 4G. The demand may far exceed the estimation of the CA. In 3 years' time, there will be huge problems with the network. Now, for this consultancy plum, on page 3, you see that you say that most jurisdictions are using the first right of refusal. Can you tell me which jurisdiction will auction only part of the spectrum? Can you give me some counter examples, Mr. Pearson?
Okay. Most countries are using the right of first refusal system. There are cases where, in countries like the Netherlands and Sweden, which have a law that says that all spectrum must be auctioned, and essentially they're foregoing this public interest test that is designed to protect the interests of consumers under these circumstances. There have been some cases where spectrum has been taken from incumbents and essentially given to a new entrant. So in France and Germany, for example, this has been done. This has been to address a direct competition concern about the number of participants in the industry, which clearly doesn't apply here in Hong Kong. And there have been a couple of cases in Greece and Ireland, for example, where existing spectrum holdings have been auctioned, and in Greece part of the spectrum was taken from the incumbents. That was essentially to provide access to the very valuable spectrum which is below 1 gigahertz, which is very important, particularly in rural areas of Europe, to achieve better coverage.
Will there be an independent assessment, Permanent Secretary? Well, the answer is definitely in the affirmative. Well, theoretically, we have to complete this item at 10 o'clock, 3 minutes each. Well, Mr. Wang Sai-chak has arrived later. I'll give the floor to him. Mr. Chairman, members, the focus of my presentation today is very simple. Time is limited today. The proposal for re-auction of existing spectrum is rather strange. If a third or a quarter of the spectrum is to be auctioned, how will you go about it? You auction spectrum in one go? If that is the case, only one operator will obtain the third of the spectrum. So it will occupy 2.1 gigahertz of the spectrum. And 2 state enterprises may be involved. China Mobile is one of them. China Mobile is strange. Its parent company is responsible to promote SCMD technology throughout the world. SCDMA spectrum, when auctioned, did not attract any bidder. Why is it so strange? For mainland consumers to use Hong Kong service, China Mobile should bid for SCDMA, not WCDMA. So the option itself is not in compliance with the mode of operation and interest of China Mobile. And then we got another state enterprise. All along, NVNO was the mode of collaboration with other operations in terms of spectrum transaction. I also use the service. So why is it that we got the new state enterprise entering the market? I have a suspicion. State enterprises may want to occupy Hong Kong's market so as to do something about the firewall. The 4 major telecommunications companies in Hong Kong dare not do dirty jobs, while state telecommunication enterprises may do it. Hong Kong people should find it strange. Of course, the 4 incumbent operators or the 3 incumbent operators may not be doing totally perfectly. But given this very strange phenomenon, had CY Leung been serving state telecommunications enterprises over TV remarks? Dr. Elizabeth Quat.
The DAB thinks that consumers' interests are most important. Just now, Mr. Charles Mok talked about technological issues. We are also concerned about that. We have asked technical people, and we have also consulted some trade associations, asking them about their views. Now, this is the second consultation. We hope that the 3G operators would give us more information to convince us if they think the government's proposal is not feasible. And we also hope that the government will also provide us with more data. That is what influence will be brought to the quality of service. Now, for the operators' service level, is it already very good? We have received a lot of complaints. Even though the present service level is maintained, there are still a lot of dissatisfactions. Now, does it mean that if you maintain your present spectrum, you will continue to provide good service? Now we are talking about 4G service, and members of the public have asked this question. That is, should the operators enhance their services because more people will be migrating to 4G service? So will the congestion of 3G service continue because people will be migrating to 4G service? So I think we should discuss more and study more. I'm pleased to hear different views today, and this really helps us in making our decision when it comes to the best interest of the people. Now, we are not here to argue. We want to listen to facts. Just now we talked about technical feasibility, and the government didn't have enough time to answer. Maybe the government can give us more details now. Mr. Ha? Well, for our internal estimation, technically it's viable. Well, we are not saying that 1/3 of the spectrum will be cut. We just want it to be used most efficiently, and we can strike a balance among different operators. Mr. Yu? Well, from consumers' perspective, I think the introduction of competition is good. But we've heard the operators' views as well. They think that after the auction, our service quality will be undermined by 18% or even more. We are not experts. But so when it comes to this kind of assessment, we want to have more information. We hope that the government can consult an independent third party so as to give us more impartial views. Now, if the government is going to hire such an independent third party, who would that be? When can you do that? Can you do that within the coming 3 months? Now we are trying to hire such a consultant, and we have to go through the relevant formalities as to which one will be eventually identified. We are now in the screening process. We will give an announcement later. And by October this year, an announcement will be made. And in the announcement, we will explain clearly concerning the feasibility study or technical feasibility study. Next, Mr. LAU Wai-hing. Chairman. Just now an analogy was made. There were 3 traffic lanes and now it's reduced to 2 lanes, so the service quality will drop. Well, for the 3rd lane in the future, it's not going to be closed forever. Actually, it will be put up for auction. And the incumbent operators, for the incumbent operators, it just means that there's a reassignment of spectrum. They may eventually get it again. And of course, there may be a new operator as well. So as to how congested the future spectrum will be, we are not just talking about the remaining 2 lanes. We are actually talking about all the 3 lanes. That, of course, covers usage and also changes in technology. And if the technology is advanced, then maybe these 3 lanes can accommodate more. Now, for the existing customers, well, originally they are driving on these 3 lanes, and now, well, if the flow is not that high, then of course the 3 lanes can be reduced to 2 lanes. But if it's already congested, if you reduce it to 2 lanes, then there will be not a problem. So as for the actual impact on users, I think there must be a very clear assessment. So that's why members have been asking questions about this. There is really a need to find an expert to look into this. Now, of course, I have to declare interest. I'm a user. I think every Hong Kong citizen is a user of mobile network service. So I'm very concerned about the impact on existing users. Yes, Mr. Low is right. For existing customers, yes, there may be a little impact. But when we look at our time frame, by October this year, we will make a decision and we will tell you the relevant arrangements. And the customers will know what the situation is. And if we resort to auction, then the customers would know how much the operator can provide in the future, and they can have a choice of operators. So we have a mechanism under which consumers can change their operators. Well, actually, the operators can also bid for the spectrum. Mr. Ma Fong-kwok, I would like to declare interest. I and my family members own smartphones, of which the services are provided by different operators. Well, so supposedly I own some of their shares. And we have been asking questions about the protection of consumers. Now we have 3 lanes, and the government say that maybe in the future there will be 4 or 5 lanes. And when that is done, the operators can decide as to how they will operate their lanes. Well, I think the only problem is technology. I think we should introduce competition. That is right. So how can we ensure that competition is introduced and service will not be affected? The crux of the issue is technology. I have consulted people who are very familiar with this. They said that actually this is a question. That is whether what they say is correct or not. Well, they say that there is a huge wastage now. Now, if the whole of Hong Kong is to be covered, if it's 3G, then we only need 1,500 transmission stations. Now, why do we have over 5,000? It's because the operators do not want to share these transmission stations with other companies. So it's a waste of resources. However, the operators saying that this is due to environment protection. So that's why they object to the reassignment of spectrum. So is this a fact? Can the government tell us? And secondly, they told me that with the advancement of technology, things have been improving. With the same bandwidth in the past decade, the transmission speed and volume have been increasing. And my family members have the same experience lately. Originally, he was using 2G, and the operator says that with the same payments, I'll give you 3G, because it wants to make use of that spectrum for other purpose. So some operators may own 2G, 3G and 4G spectra at the same time. So they should have a better operation mode so that there can be improvements. I wonder if the government or the operators can give me an answer. Will Mr. Ha answer the question? Well, for what Mr. Ma says, that's right. For the number of lanes, well, for 3G there are 12 lanes, and for 4G, 14 lanes. That's after last week's auction. As for other frequencies, we have a total of dozens of lanes, and now we are just putting 4 lanes up for auction. And all the technical problems can be resolved. Mr. Leung Kwok-hong. Well, Chairman, a government must be credible. Now, there are these 2 mainland companies. And people may query that the government is trying to benefit these mainland companies. Now, for the problem concerning Mr. Tang Yan Kong, the head of RTHK, well, is he credible? Are all the employees of RTHK lying, or is he himself lying? Now, our CE visits the mainland all the time. Well, reporters will take photos of his meeting with other heads. But when the CE, before the CE launched the new property taxes, he had to inform the Hong Guangya of the mainland government in advance. And then he tried to explain himself to us afterwards, and that's totally confusing. Well, can you focus on the issue? Well, Chairman, now if the CE says that is right, telling Wang Guangya, how come he has not told the consulates generals of other countries? So I really do not trust the government and also do not trust the operators. I think the government should hire an independent expert to look into this. Yes, I understand that all professionals can lie, but I really don't trust the government. Well, the government says that, yes, if the market is open, then there will not be monopolization and it will be fairer, etc. But I do not trust your incentive. Now, you are saying it's 18 and they are telling me that it's 50. I don't understand what that is. Even the chairman does not understand. I understand. Okay, yes, you understand. Is there a transfer of interest? I really don't understand. So I can just speak on behalf of my constituents. That is, you should hire a credible body to head the study of this issue, and public hearings should also be held. Actually, we should wrap up the discussion of this item by 10:30.
而家仲有一位
Three members have raised their hands. Oh, one more, Mr. Albert Chan. We still have one more agenda item, that is Cyberport. We must give Cyberport sufficient time to present its report so that members can respond. So now I decide to extend this meeting to 10:45 a.m. Mr. Hon Claudia MO, James Cho, and Albert Chan. No more? I'll draw a line there. No more member should ask questions, including Mrs. Regina Ip. Mr. Chairman, I thought that the line had already been drawn. You mentioned Mrs. Regina Ip. No, she did not raise her hand. And previously you said that you had already drawn a line. Well, when you drew the line, I was here. So, Mr. Chairman, you should be fairer. You cannot move the line just because it's Mr. Albert Chan who would like to be added to the list. Well, I will give the floor to Mrs. Regina Ip if she asks for it. All right, so you speak first. Mr. Albert Chan, you cannot speak. Well, I'm not targeting him. Please continue. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to understand something. Just now I heard that the administration said that spectrum capacity has already been saturated. Is it really true that technically we cannot have any other alternative possibilities? Or is it just for convenience? For the first right of refusal, in general, we have to maintain continuity, in particular for major investment and long-standing partners. We must uphold that principle. That's a major principle. Sorry, order please. So, that's a possibility, and even after referring to other jurisdictions, we find that a possibility acceptable. In order to maintain the fee level, instead of finding a new market fee level, I have to say that we should explore other possibilities. If they exercise their right, the new market price may serve as a reference. If the incumbent operators are not to reduce their spectrum capacity, if we can allow new entrants to join the market, then we'll be able to test the new market fee instead of just sticking to the first right of refusal. So I'd like to know whether we have sufficient 3G capacity at the moment. Mr. Ha? Mr. Chairman, that's a very important issue. As I said, spectrum supply is very tight at the moment. You cannot create spectrum. You can create land, but not spectrum. At present, we have 600 megahertz. In future, that will be very tight. In 2015, if we successfully close analog TV, then we get another 90 megahertz. But we have to discuss with the mainland. After 2015, there will no longer be any new spectrum supply. Back in 2007, we already cited the problem. That's why we have come up with the spectrum policy framework. Well, Mr. Ha, I'd like to have a detailed report from you, and I would like to know the diverse views of the industry. Ms. Claudia MO? Mr. Chairman, I've listened to both sides today, and I'm very perplexed. For public interest, the administration and the business sector are saying different things. The operator said that the public will be able to continue to enjoy their service. The administration did not respond to that point. The administration only mentioned introduction of competition. China Mobile, in its written submission, mentions auction and competition, and that must be done. The opponents obviously breach the provisions of the basic law in relation to the creation of a fair competition environment. Now that's in black and white. It's rather funny that they're mentioning fair competition. Newspapers report today that even Fokkining was saying that they could not compete with the giants from mainland China. The new entrants may be from mainland China, and they may be official enterprises on the mainland, and they may just buy out or just purchase the whole Hong Kong market. Well, the main argument is from Hutchison. In future, maybe in the MTR, 40 to 50% of the existing capacity may be lost or interfered with. Because up to this moment, you won't be able to explain how you arrived at 18%. They're saying the loss may be up to 40 to 50%. Well, let me say something about the DAB remarks. They would like to wait and see until October. If the administration is to come back in October only, that's rather irresponsible. I'd like the administration to tell us, after listening to so many views, is it still saying that the third option is the best? Permanent Secretary. Concerning data and impact, different people have different views. It's normal for professionals to have different views. Our professionals differ from the professionals of the incumbent operators. Anyway, in October, we'll make a decision. We'll continue to study the issue. Mr. James To, I arrived late. I have to declare interest. I hold shares of some of the operators. Even for tracker fund, SIN Chung-kai is included, and SIN Chung-kai holds smart tone. So it's very easy for us to get involved in the industry. Now, market price is the fairest. In any jurisdiction or at any time, if an incumbent operator owns a particular spectrum and say that it would like to keep the spectrum forever, then we have to think about consumers like me. I own mobile phones. Are they reasonable? The administration now wants to auction some of the spectrum of the existing operators. Society, consumers, the general public, etc., may be affected. So we should try as far as possible to adhere to the market price level. That is the principle adopted by a capitalistic society. The incumbent operators do not agree with the administration that the drop in capacity would not be as little as 18%. Even if we are to push that to the maximum, that is, the loss of capacity may be as serious as what the incumbent operators depict. But what will happen in, say, 50 years' time? Are they telling us that they should own the same spectrum forever? So the administration must tell us more about the technical aspects of this issue. If it is really like what the incumbent operators have depicted, that the general public will be seriously affected, then the general public may want to allow the incumbent operators to continue status quo, their status quo, because their interests may not be affected. I'd like to comment on this issue. Although I'm the chairman of the panel, I seldom speak. Now I have exploited the freedom of speech of my party member, Mr. Albert Chan, so I'll give my 3 minutes to him. Mrs. Regina Ip, are you going to speak? No? She chooses not to speak. Mr. Albert Chan? Mr. Chairman, we have to understand more the mode of calculation for the use of spectrum. Will the government commission an independent consultancy to conduct a simple study and draw conclusions? Permanent Secretary or Mr. Han? Mr. Han? Well, different views are presented today. We'll go back and study those views. If necessary, we may commission an independent consultant to assess the situation. I think our members have asked very clear questions. You said that you'll make a decision in October. Upon the completion of the consultation exercise, you will compile a consultancy report. Just now you said that you had not fetched any consultancy yet. Well, we'll identify a consultancy to do the job. Those of us who are familiar with the issue are concerned about how you can ensure that the consultancy appointed is independent. Will their report be lopsided? Will they favor certain operators? Mr. Ha, when they submit their bids, they have to state very clearly that they don't have any vested interest in this exercise and will be very careful in selecting the consultancy. Mr. Chairman, you still have 1.5 minutes. I still have 1.5 minutes. Let me draw a simple conclusion then. Ms. Sito, we were actually cheated by the government's existing policy. Some consultancies were actually fired by the government. So I'd like the government to let us know the tendering requirements, and the whole process should be made public so that the LegCo can follow up. Permanent Secretary, I believe we'll stick to the established practice. If upon the completion of the tendering exercise we do have bidders, then the bidding prices would be disclosed. Well, I'm not asking for the analysis, actually. I only want to know the tendering requirements, the conditions. attached. Well, if members are interested, we can pass a copy of the bidding documents to members. So thank you very much, deputations and individuals who have attended this discussion and spoken. We have to proceed to the next item. We have representatives from Hong Kong Cyberport Management Company Limited. We also have Mr. Daniel Lai, Government Chief Information Officer, and Ms. Joey Lam, Deputy Government Chief Information Officer, with us. We welcome the representatives from the administration and the Cyberport Management Company Limited. Thank you for attending this meeting. Sorry, before your item, a number of deputations came to express their views, so we're 10 odd minutes late or behind schedule. We'll give you more time for this item, and we'll finish only at 10:45 a.m. On behalf of the panel, I'd like to thank the management of Cyberport and the administration for arranging on the 19th of March a visit to the Cyberport. Members were very satisfied with the arrangements. In recent years, Cyberport had new developments and new facilities, and we're very impressed. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend the visit because I had to be tried in court.
Let us invite the representatives of the Cyberport Management Company to speak, or the Permanent Secretary first. Well, Chairman, due to time constraint, I'm not going to speak. I'll give the floor to Mr. Lam. Mr. Lam, please. Yes, I'm very pleased to be able to come today to share with you about our developments in the past year. And I have prepared a PowerPoint presentation. Actually, this PowerPoint was shared by the members who visited us the other day. Let's go to the right page first. For the Cyberport, our vision is to develop Cyberport into a leading hub of ICT in the Asia-Pacific region. And we have focused our work on 3 areas. First, incubation of enterprises, in particular local ICT startups. And also, we will promote collaborations. We are collaborating with a lot of companies and bodies. And also, we are cooperating with our counterparts in the Asia-Pacific region and from all over the world. And also, we will promote ICT, both in the industry and to the public. And here are our major works. We have set up 5 independent or interdependent centers. They are the Entrepreneurship Center, which is a flagship center for nurturing enterprises. We also have a collaboration center. We are cooperating with a lot of partners. And we also have a technology center, and we are focusing on cloud computing, and we want to promote it among ICT startups, and also we are promoting digital entertainment. We are building a network of digital cinemas, and we are promoting the relevant technology. And also we have a knowledge center. It serves to promote ICT's knowledge, and many activities have been held. And also there is another center called the Campus Development Center. And I would like to share with you some figures. As for incubation program and ICT startups, as I said just now, the responsible center is the Entrepreneurship Center. We have held 12 stages of training already, and 567 companies have come to apply. 189 companies have become our incubatees, and over 120 of them have graduated. 67% of these companies are continuing to develop. And these companies have provided 967 jobs. When it comes to intellectual property, 103 of them. Awards, 106. As for these companies, the Angel Fund has been investing $55 million in them. And also, we have a micro creative center, and the funds are given to small companies for promotions and development of their work. These companies can turn their concepts into reality, and the threshold for application is relatively low. We have so far received 685 applications, and we have chosen 53 of them and provide them with funds. 24 of them applied for our incubation program, and 22 of them have also been approved. So we can see that when it comes to ICT startups, in the past 2 years, they have been quite prosperous. Also, for collaboration, as I said just now, locally we are cooperating with a lot of organizations, and also we have been cooperating with Productivity Council, VTC, Invest Hong Kong, etc. And also we are joining hands with a number of IT organizations. Both locally and internationally, we have done a lot of work. Now we have our representatives office in Shanghai and Beijing. And for ICT startups they can use the resources there. And we have also been visiting Canada, the US, Tokyo. So on the whole, we want to help Hong Kong startups and SMEs to tap into different markets. Actually, I can show you a short video here. We visited Japan and Silicon Valley, and this is a video lasting for 2 minutes, and it's about our journeys.
就係我哋嘅活動同埋展覽，俾我哋有機會喺我哋咧去擴展我哋嘅市場，同埋展示我哋嘅產品。上年5月嘅時候咧，我哋就參加咗一個喺日本舉辦嘅 Think Global Think Hong Kong 嘅代表團。
非常之開心啦！咁作為ICT 嘅公司嘅 startup 公司啦，咁可以嚟到 Silicon Valley， 咁係一個非常之好嘅 experience 嚟嘅。
譬如話 Setna 嗰啲咁大間 office 啦，咁好嘅福利啦，其實係的而且確都幾震撼嘅。
最比較印象深刻就係嗰個 Runway 嗰一個 project 啦。咁佢就係一個免費嘅地方去俾一啲startup 嘅人去使用，嗰個非常之難得一件事嚟嘅。
好開心一樣嘢就頭先見過 Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office 啦，其實發覺原來有喺 Silicon Valley， 如果我哋想揾一啲人去幫手，其實都會有一個窗口俾我哋咯。
咁喺今年呢，係
Well, this year in North America, actually we started an event there. We visited San Francisco and Silicon Valley last year. So this year, we will join hands with TDC, and we will join an activity, Think Asia, Think Hong Kong there in LA, and we also will be taking a group to Silicon Valley. And from last year's experience, we think it was very good because our ICT startups communicated with the ICT startups there, and the exchange was really helpful. And now I would like to give you some other figures. We have held over 80 ICT activities, and over 18,000 ICT people have taken part in our activities. We have also entertained a lot of students. We hope to promote ICT at an early age, and over 10,000 students have taken part in our activities last year. And we have 2 internships. One is in Shanghai. Last year, there were 20 placements. Well, there were some international companies in Shanghai, and they have their R&D centers, and they had this kind of placements. And locally, we have another internship. That is, we are cooperating with the hospital authority. And this is about informatics and e-health records. So we will continue to organize activities like this, and we hope that there can be better promotion of ICT. Of course, you are very concerned about our financial position. As for our rental rate now is 84.3%, but 85.9% of all the flats have been entered into agreement, and we have 128 tenants. Over 5,000 people are working at cyberports. They are knowledge-based staff. And for 128 companies, 46% of them are not local companies, and 67% of them are SMEs. So our occupation rate is roughly like this. As for our financial position, our operating income is about $388 million, and before EBITDA, the profit is $72 million. And we have organized numerous activities, and we have put in $34 million for this purpose, and we expect this figure continue to rise. This is my report. Thank you. Permanent Secretary, would you like to supplement? No. Members, Mrs. Regina Ip. I would like to thank Mr. Lam for his report. Yes, I understand that you've done a lot of work, but I would like to ask you this. You have done a lot of incubation. You have been taking people to other countries. What kind of new industries do we have which own an international market? CEO? Well, for the figures, actually, now we have 180 companies in our incubation program, and there have been a number of changes. Well, first we were talking about Web 2.0, online games, companies, etc. But lately, the trend has changed. That is about mobile technology. There are more apps and mobile apps companies. Actually, Hong Kong companies are very creative, and they do not need a lot of manpower to do that. So for companies like this in Hong Kong, I think there is huge potential for them. Lately, a company flew to the U.S. last week. A very famous sports brand invited them because they put together an apps. Now, mobile sports is very popular nowadays. That is, this is a combination of IT technology and sports. So that company was invited to the U.S. Actually, the U.S. company has invited a number of companies from different places. So for mobile apps, there is a lot of potential, and Hong Kong people are very creative. And I'm sure there will be a big market for that. And also for some of our incubatees, their major market is in the U.S., and the market is huge, like tens of billions of dollars. Well, for the last CEO, Mr. Yang, he told me several years ago that Cyberport's focus was on digital entertainment. Is it still the case now? If so, for the mobile apps you mentioned just now, are they also for entertainment purpose? Well, for digital entertainment, that is also one of our focuses. In the past few years, we also expanded to other IT businesses, for example, software, applications, etc. As for digital entertainment, in the past few years, there have been certain developments. For example, we have built a network of digital cinemas in Hong Kong. Lately, the Asian Music Festival was held, and at different cinemas, you could enjoy the same concert. And this has also brought about new commercial opportunities for the industry. So for digital entertainment, we have expanded to cover other areas. Mr. Charles Mock. We hope that the Bureau can tell us more about Hong Kong's IT policy. It's not just about the cyber port, and it's not only Mr. Lam's responsibility, but of course he plays a very important role. I would like to ask a simple question. Now I see the figure of $34 million and it's used on public missions and activities. So will that budget be increased in the future? And some companies are not working as cyberports. They may not have the need to have an office in cyberports, and they may not need your incubation programs. So can you expand your work so that companies outside the cyberports can also benefit?
Mr. Lam, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Concerning injection of funds, this year we're in the third year of a triennium plan. So we'll have an investment of $40 million this year. So you can observe that there's an increase. With the board of directors, we're now discussing the third triennium plan. I believe the funding level will further increase. As for new entrants, there are a couple of aspects. Number one, in the past, for a certain period of time, we did have a non-residential tenants. If some companies do not select to base permanently in Cyberport, we can also have some transactions and dealings with them. In particular, for SMEs and newly started companies, they may not be in a large scale, so they may fail quick. So there's this smart space new service, which is to give them flexible conditions of use of facilities and office space in Cyberport. So that's something new for them. Besides, we have launched Connect Space for the non-resident companies. For those who have obtained funding under the Micro Industry Fund, they can also be allocated certain space in Cyberport. No more follow-up, Mr. Charles Mock? Then Mr. LAU Wai-hing. Concerning the nurturing of local innovative companies, I hope that the Cyberport can do something, because that's one of the important objectives of Cyberport. For Angel Fund, it's already up to 55 million Hong Kong dollars. So it's an incubator. Given its success, may I know whether there are other assessment tools? So in the incubation process, how did you trace these companies so that you'll be able to know their growth, so that we can gauge the effectiveness of this program in nurturing local new companies? And then there's this question of benchmarking. You should compare these companies with those in neighboring jurisdictions. You should compare similar facilities in other jurisdictions like Cyberport. So first of all, tracing of the effectiveness of the companies, and second, how does Cyberport compare with similar facilities in other jurisdictions? Mr. Lam, concerning the tracing of the growth of new companies, we have done quite a great deal of work. Now, first of all, we would like to increase the number of such companies. The more companies we have, the pie will be enlarged. Just now, we mentioned 67% as the cost level. We'll monitor whether or not these companies have sustainable development. And then we'll see whether investment can be sought under the Angel Fund. But gauging is up to that level. As for benchmarking comparison with neighboring jurisdictions, at the moment, we don't have a formal study for comparison. But then, in various jurisdictions, the media industry had already noticed Cyberport, and in a recent journal article, Cyberport is mentioned. We don't have data, but we can see that interaction has been strong between us and other jurisdictions. Mr. Low, for benchmarking, you can refer to similar parks and facilities in other jurisdictions. Ms. Emily Lau. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask about the occupancy rate. In your document, you mentioned 93.8% this year. That means you still have vacant space. Why are people not interested in them? And do you subsidize their rent? Because if you charge a market rent, you won't be able to lease your space, right? Well, the tenancy rate is 84.9%. I think 90% is related to the commercial portion only. So we still have some residual space. Of course, we would like to lease our space to IT companies. We all know that we're not accessible by MTR. So in terms of accessibility, we're under a challenge. In future, we'll have an MTR extension. I hope that by then we'll see some improvements. We don't specifically offer a rental subsidy, but our target tenants are IT companies, or rather they're the only tenants. Demand is less and automatically rent is adjusted. Ms. Emily Lau, Mr. Chairman, there are people complaining about high rent, but here you have vacant space, even for commercial space. Is it because of poor accessibility? You should make good use of your resources. Permanent Secretary, do you know the problem? Permanent Secretary, do you know the problem? Yes, I know the problem because at board meetings of Cyberport, we did discuss rent. Well, companies join and leave, sometimes because of the nature of the companies. Why is it that the occupancy rate has dropped to 80-odd%? Is because a major tenant has left. They've got some new tenants, but still the percentage could not be boosted. Tenants are confined to IT companies. Other companies cannot enter. I believe there's room for improvement. We should work harder. Accessibility is definitely a problem. Now they rely on their own feeder buses to carry staff members and other people. Well, of course, your tenancy requirements are rather strict. People cannot enter very easily. Well, this has been a problem year after year. Yes, year after year they have vacant space. Mr. Leung Kok Hong, Mr. Chairman, sometimes I visit Cyberport to stage programs sometimes. Well, Cyberport looks very small amidst luxury apartment buildings. So what is Cyberport? Is actually a scandal. If you look back at its origin, Well, Cyberport has actually pumped money into the pocket of Mr. Lee Ka-sing. It's a scandal. It's an insult. It's a shame for the people of Hong Kong. You mention high-tech businesses, but in fact, Cyberport is not doing that. For Bel Air, if we don't have Bel Air, would we have Cyberport? Well, I think members' remarks have been too courteous. It's actually a property development project. How are you going to finish this whole project? Mr. Chairman, what views do you have on the IT industry of Hong Kong? It's a private company wholly owned by the government under the supervision of the financial secretary in the form of a corporation. Have you ever considered folding up Cyberport? You'd rather sell it to Mr. Lee Ka-sing. Anyway, they are selling hotels. They're so you better sell Cyberport to them. Permanent Secretary, you're actually serving some other parties. Just look at Bel Air. So what have you been doing? Permanent Secretary, will you answer Mr. Leung Kwok Hong's question? I hope that Mr. Leung Kwok Hong can be fairer. Just now in our introduction, we mentioned different IT companies with different developments. IT companies and Cyberport have worked very hard. They obtained international awards. They also obtained investment under Angel Fund. Well, when I pass by on a bus, I discover a lot of fallow land. Well, I think Mr. Leung Kwok Hong has to be fairer. There are IT companies working in Cyberport. They want a good prospect. Like what Mrs. Ip said, they would like to walk out of Hong Kong. And the government has continued with this hard work. Yes, tenancy rate is too low. I can promise you that we'll work very hard. Well, Mr. Leung, the original sin of Cyberport can be discussed every year. Well, we have to end our meeting here. We have not exceeded the extension time. So thank you very much, members and government representatives.